Okay, so this week in the NBA, it's going to be coming out of the All-Star break. First of all, Giannis Antetokounmpo will take on Karl-Anthony Towns. The Bucks take on Minnesota, and then later on in the weekend, your guy Jason Tatum, the NBA's best record Boston Celtics, take on Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks.
That is correct. Um, we also have the Cavaliers taking on the 76ers on Friday night.
They also take on Orlando as well on Thursday. Back to back, hard schedule for Cleveland, but lucky for them, they get Washington on Sunday.
Yes, and then Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks on Tuesday.
So very hard schedule for Cleveland coming up, which, by the way, is one of the reasons why we will not be doing this show next Tuesday. Random announcement there. We will have a different schedule for next week because of that Cavs game on Tuesday.
Yes, I will be working that game against Luka and Kyrie and those Dallas Mavericks. But let me first talk about this Timberwolves against Bucks game. The Timberwolves already beat the Bucks earlier this season in Milwaukee. Thank you again, Minnesota Timberwolves. As a Cavs fan, I very much appreciate it because you guys beating the Bucks allowed us to move past Milwaukee in the Central Division standings and the overall Eastern Conference standings. But I have so many questions about the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, can they figure it out? I don't know. Like, that's got to be one of the biggest questions in the second half of the season is, can Doc Rivers turn this ship around for the Milwaukee Bucks?
It sounded like Doc the other day was campaigning and telling Milwaukee he didn't want the job.
I don't get it. I honestly don't. And we'll see if Dame, what he did over All-Star Weekend, whether that'll translate onto the court in regular season games.
AKA, we'll see if Damian Lillard can actually become that guy in the postseason who I always thought was one of the most overrated players in the NBA because he's never won a conference finals game. If you are a number one, if you are a superstar, if you are that guy to carry a team, and don't pretend like Portland didn't have good teams over the years. The teams with LaMarcus Aldridge, the teams with CJ McCollum, they were good enough to at least make conference finals multiple times. They choked multiple times, and when they did make a conference finals, they had a lot like the Lakers last year, where they had Golden State on the ropes 4 times. They couldn't close any of those deals. So that's why I thought Damian Lillard was brought to Milwaukee to help Giannis win a championship, because I thought it was a big indictment for me personally last year for Giannis that Milwaukee's one playoff win against a Miami team where Jimmy Butler just outplayed Giannis. And I know he got hurt and boo-hoo and yada yada. Again, it's a part of the new NBA culture. You play hurt in the playoffs. It's just the way it is. But Milwaukee's one win in that series came when Giannis did not play in game 2. And so after Giannis was supposed to take over the best player in the mantle from LeBron James when he won that MVP in 2019, and more specifically, when he won the 2021 NBA Finals against CP3 and Devin Booker and that Suns team.
Because Monty Williams forgot how to make adjustments.
He really hasn't really done that, though. Jokic has sort of taken his spot, and Jokic cares more about horse racing than basketball, and that's not even a joke.
That whole thing is funny. Let me just, I know you're going on, and I appreciate that, but I gotta give Karl-Anthony Towns some credit here. I mean, I didn't think it was gonna work with him and Rudy Gobert based on what we saw from the Timberwolves last season, and Karl-Anthony Towns seems to have made the adjustment that has allowed it to work with him and Gobert. And
yeah, I think the fact that he's a stretch 4 now essentially, and he can stretch the 4 with Gobert being the more of the rebounder and Anthony Edwards being the leader of that team. The thing is, though, that collective unit, obviously Anthony Edwards has never been in the playoffs. From my knowledge, I think Minnesota might have made it one time with Karl-Anthony Towns, and I don't think they won a game. Gobert, obviously.
I think that they did make it against Memphis. I think it
Yes,
was.
that
They
that
pushed
was
it
a
to six
while ago,
games.
though.
No, it was only like two
Two
or
or
three.
3 years ago, which is a long time in the NBA. I mean,
Yeah,
people are moving left and right in the off season. So Gobert obviously on those teams with Donovan Mitchell, who won a playoff series and then would get bounced pretty quickly. So we'll see. There's a lot of pressure on Minnesota this year. I don't know if they're going to have this great chance where the West is wide open like this again. I think them, obviously, Oklahoma City, the Clippers, Denver, the Lakers are still, trying to compete for something down there. You can never count out Golden State. If they get in the tournament, they've been odd going into the All Star break.
Sacramento.
Sacramento as well. Who knows if Luke and Kyrie can put something together? The West is star studded. It's wide open, more than the East, which is why I think it's a top seed. Minnesota needs to take advantage, something Sacramento could not do last year. And when many people thought Sacramento would be on their way up, they have gone back down. Will that, so to speak, will that be the same fate for Minnesota? On the Milwaukee side, and we're about to get to Boston, I still feel, and I know the Cavs are playing well, and I may sound like a Cleveland hater, even though we're obviously both from the area. I don't trust this Cavs team yet. I need to see them actually win a playoff series and actually do it in convincing fashion. And to
Sure.
think that this team can go the distance, I still think it's easily Milwaukee and Boston as the top two teams in the East. And I know they're struggling right now, but history will tell you. I think that the Bucks do have a better coach right now. I think they have the better overall roster and talent. Will Drew Holiday make the difference for Boston? It could be, but I just don't see it right now because, as you know, unlike you, I don't trust Jason Tatum.
And trust me, I hear what you're saying about Milwaukee against Cleveland. I would not be surprised if the Bucks ultimately catch the Cavs in this division standings and win it. Um, and if it comes down to Boston and Cleveland, possibly, though I'm not dismissing New York or Milwaukee.
I am. I think the Knicks have a first round ceiling. I think they can win a playoff series. I think Indiana could maybe win a playoff series. As of this point, I think the Cavs could win one or two, depending on who they play, or they could go home. I think if they play the Knicks again, they may lose again. I think Indiana may be a bad matchup for the Cavs. So this is all based off matchups. I believe, as we saw last year, like Miami right now, they're the seventh seed. Miami would be a bad matchup for Cleveland. We know the Cavs historically almost never win in Miami.
Yeah.
Miami Milwaukee is a bad matchup for the Bucks. So this thing is all based off matchups, but I think the pressure is really on those two teams in the East.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Um, if I had to say going between Boston and Minnesota, I know they're not playing each other this week. We've been talking about how it's Timberwolves against the Bucks and the Celtics against the Knicks, but since they're the two number one seeds, I think home court advantage is more important for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I agree with you there because they're a young team, and we know young teams play better at home.
Right, especially because think about it. You mentioned some of the teams lurking. You've got Oklahoma City. Yes, they're a young team, but they could be a very dangerous team.
Shea Gilders-Alexander was my pick to win All-Star Game MVP. I thought the West was going to win. I was clearly wrong on that.
Yeah. Let me just say this on that front. I think Shea. I know the Celtics are the top team in the league right now. I get it. So it would make sense if Jason Tatum is the leading candidate for MVP. No. As much as I love JT, for me, right now, if I had to give out the MVP, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, for me, is the MVP of the league.
I'm going to make a controversial statement that is not possible, but I don't think there's an MVP in the league in the NBA this year. Because
Really?
I think the real MVP got disqualified when he got hurt, and that was Joel Embiid. Um, I thought that Joel Embiid was clearly the best player in basketball this year. And I think that Giannis, Jokic, Shea, all these guys near the top of the voting, they're so close and they're all putting up similar numbers. I mean, the numbers this year are ridiculous. That's why, when a guy scores 70 points, as I told you a couple weeks ago when Embiid did it, I'm like, who cares? They're doing it every night now. So I've always had a problem with the NBA MVP. I always think they pick the wrong guy. I think the voters get fatigued. I think LeBron should have 7 or 8 MVPs, and he only has 4. Um, I think that when you talk about most valuable player, it should be when that guy is off the court, does your team drastically become worse? And the Sixers immediately fell apart the second Joel Embiid left the court. Tyrese Maxey's a great player. He's not the number one. And the Sixers go from a fringe championship contender to a team that's going to make the playoffs just based off the way the standings are. But nobody has any realistic expectations for them anymore if Embiid does not come back. If Giannis were to go out Milwaukee, they still have Dame. Denver still has Jamal Murray, and I don't think they would be as good, but I highly doubt they would fall apart. Um,
If you
you
take
know,
Shea off the Thunder, they're
that's
not.
the thing. I think if you take Shea off the Thunder, I think that they are, obviously not as good, but I don't think Shea has had a wow moment. I don't think he's been on TV enough. I don't think he's been marketed enough to be the MVP. If that makes sense, I think that thing matters.
Marketability definitely matters, and how much exposure you get on national TV certainly matters. Um, so I totally hear you, but I just look at what Shea has done for Oklahoma City this season. I don't think anybody was expecting the Thunder to be top 4
No,
in the
I
Western
I
Conference.
thought they would be, a 6 seed. I thought they'd be better. Some people had them not even making the playoffs. But I agree. I think you can make a real case for Anthony Edwards, though, as I mentioned, they would still have Cat. But nobody thought, I didn't even think Minnesota was going to make the playoffs, let alone be the number one seed in the Western Conference.
Right. I
So,
I do think Denver or the Clippers are ultimately going to catch them though.
see, the Clippers are hard for me because I love their coach. And I said this about the Clippers the other day. This is their year to win a title.
It has to be.
Kawhi Leonard is not going to be as. I mean, Kawhi Leonard could walk down my street right now and tear his ACL. I'm not joking. I'm just telling you the facts. How injury prone Kawhi Leonard is, who I like to call number 2, the robot, because he still drives a 90s car. He still has a flip phone. He doesn't speak. He just goes out there and hoops. But he's never going to be as healthy as he is right now. Paul George never going to be as healthy as he is right now. Who the hell thought Russell Westbrook coming off the bench would actually be a okay, decent player? And James Harden's postseason success may be eviscerated this offseason. So,
Yeah.
bottom line, we have a lot to figure out between now and April, I would say.
Yes. I do think it would be fitting if the Clippers won the championship this season because they're moving into their new arena, the Intuit Dome next season. Could you imagine if the Clippers end the season by winning the championship at Crypto.com Arena and then opening night next season, they're hanging a banner and receiving their rings in their new arena? I think
I
that would be
I
pretty
think
cool.
the NBA would like that. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it'd be hilarious if it did. I think the NBA kind of wants it.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen right now. I would still favor Denver ultimately, but
You would favor Denver to go back to back. That's interesting. I would favor Denver in the West. I think Milwaukee is still should be the favorite to win the title. I know they're struggling right now with Doc Rivers, but people got to remember we went through this same thing in Cleveland. Now, granted, we had LeBron and we had Kyrie and we had Kevin Love, but Denver seemingly does have the best player on the planet right now or I shouldn't say Denver. Milwaukee has one of the best players on the planet right now in Giannis. Obviously, Damian Lillard. They have Middleton. They have Brook Lopez. They have
Excuse me.
ingredients to what Cleveland had in 2016, and we struggled with Ty Lue out of the gate. I don't know if you remember, there was a game in February. We lost to a terrible Grizzlies team at the time, and they were playing all bench guys. So things happen, and it's
Sounds
why
like
it's
what happened to the Bucks the other night against the Grizzlies.
exactly what I'm saying. So things happen. The NBA is weird. The regular season, as I keep saying over and more, it's a crapshoot. The players do not clearly care about it as much. There is no defense being played, and that's why I think they need to shorten the season. But if you want to hear my TED talk on that, once again, go to Brand's World.